What's going on guys, Jim here. This is an endgame non-mythic stinger build. It speed farms extremely quickly, clears tier 101 pits in great time, flies around the map like a poisonous ninja god, and can push through at least tier 120 pits without perfect masterworking. I've been using this build for about a week now, and it's extremely fun and satisfying. I really enjoy the stinger animation as it feels really smooth in conjunction with Ravager especially. As you might expect, this build has a lot of overlap in the Paragon Board, and in the passives in the skill tree, when compared to other Spiritborn builds, as it takes full advantage of the similar multipliers. But nonetheless, it's a great time. So if you like these kind of video guides, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, hit the bell. I really appreciate it. Now let's get into the build. So for the skill tree, we're going to take 2 into any of our basic skills, as we're not going to use that. And in our core skills, we're going to take 5 into Stinger, of course, and we're going to go for Rampant Stinger. Then we're going to take 3 into Vigorous, 3 into Balanced Exertion, and 3 into Follow Through. For our focus skills, we're taking 1 into Vortex, 1 into Mirage, 3 into Unrestrained Power, 1 into Ravager, and go for the Measured Ravager. We're going to take 1 into Focal Point, and 3 into Apex. Down in our defensive skills, we're going to take 1 into Endurance, 2 into Perseverance, 1 into Armored Hide, go for the Reinforced Armored Hide, 1 into Counterattack, going for the Reinforced Counterattack, 1 into Scourge, going for Adaptable, and 1 into Patient Guard. Down in our potency skills, we're going to take 3 into Resilient. Then we're also going to take 3 into Potent, Furnace, Ravenous, and Oppressive, so 3 into all of those passives. Then in our ultimate skills, we're going to take 3 into Resolution, Spiritual Attunement, and Supremacy. And then 1 into the Hunter, and go for Exalted Hunter. Lastly, our key passive, of course, we're going to be taking Prodigy's Tempo. Next up, we have the Paragon Board. So in the starting board, we're using Canny. This gives us non-physical damage, as well as non-physical damage increases all non-physical damage an enemy takes from us by 1% up to 10% for 15 seconds. And we get a nice non-physical damage multiplier as the legendary bonus. For our second board, we're going to take Sapping. And we're going to put in the Menagerous Glyph here. This gives us a nice bonus to all magic node boost, which is important as it gives us a lot of maximum resource. As for the additional bonus, dealing damage with a Gorilla, Jaguar, Eagle or Centipede skill increases damage you deal by 4% for 10 seconds, stacking once per spirit. It's multiplicative. And the legendary bonus increases our Incarnate skill damage. For our third board, we're going to the right to take Revealing, and we're going to use Colossal as the glyph. That's going to give us Gorilla skill damage, and we deal 2% increased damage for each stack of Resolve we have. And for the legendary bonus, we deal increased damage to close enemies. Next we go up from there and take Convergence, and we're going to put in the Fitness glyph here that gives us critical strike damage, and skills that crit generate 3 Vigor, and the legendary bonus gives us an increase in critical strike damage. For our fifth and final board, we're going up from Sapping and taking Vicious Shield, and the glyph is going to be Spirit, and critical strikes increase the damage an enemy takes from us by 3% for 20 seconds up to 15%. And for the legendary bonus, we gain increased damage to elites. So as you would expect, super simple board, very similar to a lot of the other Spiritborn builds. Let's move on to the Spirit Hall. We're going to be taking Jaguar as our first spirit, and Gorilla as our secondary spirit here. For the Mercenaries, we're going to be taking Rahir. As usual, we're going down the left side, Shield Charge, Rahir's Guard, Provoke, and Mocking Lure. As our reinforcement, we're taking Variana with Earthbreaker, and we're going to attach that to our Scourge ability. Really handy, as basically every other time we use our Scourge, they'll get knocked down by Earthbreaker so they're not running away and you're not having to chase them down. Alternatively, you could use Bloodthirst instead of Earthbreaker. Next up for the gear, this is the non-mythic version of the build, but there will be a mythic version in the build planner in the description below, so make sure you check that out, as it will get you a little bit more damage and utility. So we're going to start with the Helm. As usual, we're going to go for the Harmony of Ebewaka, try and prioritize a greater affix on the damage reduction if you can. So we're using this mainly for the unique aspect. According to our secondary spirit hall choices, all our skills will additionally be from that spirit, so in our case gorilla, and our skills will deal 10 to 30% increased damage per spirit type they have. So a nice multiplicative damage boost here from this item, and of course you want to try and masterwork the damage reduction. Next up for the chest piece, we've got a normal chest piece here. We're going to go for one with dexterity, maximum life, and resistance to all elements. And we're going to temper that with maximum resolve stacks and barrier generation, and try and masterwork the maximum resolve stacks. For the aspect, we're going to use the aspect of apprehension. So once an enemy is slowed by at least 80%, they also become feared for 3 seconds, and we deal 20 to 40% increased damage to feared enemies. Next up we have the gloves. We're going to be using some gloves with maximum life, ranks into stinger, and attack speed if you can get it. And we're going to temper that with basic skill damage and stinger size. As for the aspect, we're going to be using redirected force here, so we gain increased critical strike damage equal to 30 to 70% of our block chance, and blocking doubles this bonus for 10 seconds. For the masterworking, we're going to try and masterwork these stinger ranks. If you can't get attack speed on these gloves, dexterity would be the next best thing. Next up, the pants. We're going to be going for some normal pants here. We're going to look for maximum life, armor, and ranks into basic skills. We're going to try and temper that with barrier generation and maximum resolve stacks, masterworking the maximum resolve stacks. For the aspect, we're using interdiction, so we gain 1 to 15% block chance per resolve stack. Next up, the boots. We're going to be using some normal boots, going for maximum life, armor, and cold resistance as our affixes. And you want to try and masterwork the maximum life here. As for the tempering, we're going for barrier generation and movement speed. For the aspect, I'm using duelist, so our maximum ferocity is increased by 1 to 5. For our weapon, of course, we're going to be using the Rod of Kepeleke, as pretty much every other Spiritborn build is. We're going to try and masterwork the chance for core skills to hit twice on this, and you want to prioritize getting a greater affix on that, of course, and also a greater affix on the maximum resource if you can. And on top of those things, we're using this for the aspect, of course, so our core skills are now additionally basic skills and free to cast. And when casting at maximum vigor, our core skills consume all vigor to return full damage, cast at their larger size, and become guaranteed crits. So that's why we take a lot of basic skill damage in our build, and why we don't take any critical strike chance. Next up we have the Amulet. We're going for a Banished Lord's Talisman. The most important things here would be the maximum life and the aspect percentage. Just like all of our other aspects, you really want to prioritize the high rolls there. So of course if you can, get the greater affix on the maximum life, and as such you want to masterwork that. So as for the aspect, after we spend 275 primary resource, our next core skill is guaranteed to overpower, and our critical strikes that overpower deal 20 to 60% increased damage. So this works along with the Rod of Kepeleke and the Ring of the Midnight Sun to basically refill our vigor to full and expend it on every hit, and in turn spending all of that primary resource makes our next core skill a guaranteed overpower that also critically strikes thanks to the Rod of Kepeleke, provided you have adequate primary resource, resource cost reduction, resource generation, and a good roll on the Ring of the Midnight Sun's aspect. So those three items together are responsible for a huge portion of the damage. For our first ring, as I mentioned, we're taking a Ring of the Midnight Sun here, and you want to try and get a greater affix on that cooldown reduction, as that's what you want to masterwork. But more importantly than that, you want to get a Ring of the Midnight Sun with a 50% roll on that aspect. So when you critically strike, you regain 20 to 50% of the vigor you've spent in the last 2 seconds. This is instrumental in keeping our vigor full between every hit and allowing us to expend it all, which will grant us a critical strike, which will also be overpowered. Additionally, with this ring we gain counterattack's passive effect. For our second ring, we're using a normal ring. We're going for a ring with maximum life, attack speed, and lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable. And as for the tempering, we're going for resource generation and basic skill damage. Masterworking wise, you want to masterwork the attack speed or the maximum life, depending on what your attack speed is without Moonrise active. So if you've already got 80% attack speed, focus on masterworking that maximum life. As for the aspect, we're using Moonrise, so damaging an enemy with a basic skill grants us 4% attack speed for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. and upon reaching maximum stacks, you enter a Vampiric Blood Rage, gaining 40 to 100% basic skill damage and 15% movement speed for 10 seconds. That pretty much wraps it up for the gear. Let's talk about the gems and the runes. So for the runes in the chest piece, I'm using Pock and Quay. So when you spend 300% of your maximum resource, invoke the Druid's Earthen Bulwark for 3 seconds, granting yourself a barrier. So basically this will be popping off all of the time, as you'll spend 300% of your maximum resource in 3 to 6 auto attacks. And in our weapon, we're going to use Zol and Zal, so when we invoke a skill from another class 2 times, we'll gain 20% maximum life for 6 seconds. So since Earthen Bulwark will be proccing a lot, this will always be active once you're in combat. As for the gems, in the other armor slots we're going to be using the Amethyst for the barrier generation, so 2 in the pants, 2 in the helm. And in the jewellery we're going to be using 2 diamonds for that resist all, and we're going to be using 1 amethyst for the shadow resistance. Keep in mind that our resistances won't be maxed out, we'll be lacking a bit of poison resistance with this build, and the fire resistance will be fixed with a perfect roll of resistance to all elements on your chest piece. So that pretty much wraps it up for the build. Hope it helps you out. Hope you have as much fun with this build as I did. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below if you feel like it. It really helps out the channel a lot, and I super appreciate it. So thanks again, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.